All right, diving into some really intriguing stuff today, huh? We're talking about the Key of Solomon.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
We've got these excerpts, right? This legendary grimoire, and it claims to hold, get this, the actual secrets to summoning and controlling spirits. Passed down from, who else? King Solomon himself.
King Solomon, yeah.
I mean, come on, that's pretty wild.
It really is. And whether or not you buy into that whole Solomon connection, literally,
Right.
the book itself gives us this really fascinating glimpse into historical magical practices.
Like how it was actually done.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about, waving a wand and muttering spells. It was a whole system, this intricate web woven with astrology, religion, even elements of, you could say, early science.
I've always been fascinated by, how much these old texts emphasize timing. It's like setting an alarm clock to cast a spell during like the hour of Mars or something for that extra magical boost. Was that a common thing back then?
Absolutely. And you can see that reflected in the Key of Solomon, especially in how it structures its rituals around what we call planetary hours. So each hour of the day linked to a specific planet, and that planet in turn governs the energy, the purpose
Yeah.
of that hour.
So like your magical success hinges on picking the right cosmic Uber driver.
In a way, yeah. Imagine thinking your success could depend on harnessing, say, the power of Venus for matters of the heart, or maybe Mars if you need a boost of courage.
Just think twice about skipping your horoscope.
Right. Right. It just shows how they believed magic wasn't this random haphazard thing, but a practice deeply, deeply connected to the movements of the cosmos.
It's a whole system though, right? Like you said, it's not just about picking the right time. There's more to it.
Oh, absolutely. The book lays out this structured system of magic, but we call it Solomonic magic. Think of it like a recipe book almost. You've got your ingredients, these meticulously crafted tools, specific days and hours, chosen based on those astrological positions we talked about, and a huge emphasis on ritual purity.
Okay, let's unpack this whole ritual purity thing. We're talking about special baths, right? Herbs, incenses, that sort of thing. What was the thinking there?
It goes beyond just physical hygiene. It's about aligning yourself, your whole being, with the spiritual world. The Key of Solomon is incredibly detailed about this. Like, there's mention of a 9-day period of abstinence. No,
Wow, 9 days?
9 days. And then these purification rituals, very specific, involving herbs and salt. The whole point was to cleanse yourself of any spiritual impurities, anything that might interfere with the magic.
It really makes you realize how seriously they took this stuff. It's almost like preparing for some sacred ceremony,
Right.
wouldn't you say?
You're exactly right. In a way, that's precisely what they were doing. They believed that by achieving this state of purity, they were making themselves worthy vessels to receive divine power. And speaking of vessels,
Let's talk about the tools.
yes, the tools.
Because we're not talking about your average weekend project here. Swords, daggers, even special ink. What made these tools magical?
It wasn't just about what they were, but how they were made. The book meticulously details the creation process for each tool. Every little detail mattered, from the materials they used to the prayers recited during their construction.
So like even the ink and pen had a specific recipe.
Precisely. They believe this whole process, all that intention, that focus, infused the objects themselves with spiritual energy, making them conduits for magical power.
It's like these everyday things transformed into something, well, extraordinary. But how did they actually use these tools? Like what did a ritual in the Key of Solomon look like?
Okay, so picture this. You're a practitioner back then, right? You've spent days in preparation. You've cleansed yourself. You've got your tools. You've aligned yourself with the cosmic energies, pick the right hour, all of it. And now you step into this space, this charged space, filled with power and potential, the magic circle.
Ah, the magic circle. Okay, yeah. Always makes me think of those chalk outlines you see in movies, with the spooky chanting and everything. What's the significance of the circle in the Key of Solomon? What makes it so important?
It's way more than just a visual thing, just for show. The book describes it as a protective barrier, like a consecrated space, a place where the magician can, safely interact with the spirit world. And actually, the creation of the circle, the process itself is fascinating. It involves inscribing the circle with these protective names of God, burning incense, reciting specific psalms. The whole ritual in itself.
So they're taking every precaution. Like, it's almost dangerous. It's not just about summoning power. It's about controlling it, too, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget, they were dealing with forces they truly believed could be both, benevolent, helpful, but also incredibly dangerous. The circle acted as a kind of spiritual safety net, a way to contain these wild energies and, ensure the magician's protection. Because you never knew.
Right, better safe than sorry. Especially when you're summoning, well, what exactly are you summoning? You mentioned angels and demons before. What's the deal with the spiritual hierarchy in the Key of Solomon?
Oh man, it's a trip. It's this complex system that reflects their belief that basically the universe is teeming with these unseen entities all around us. And each one has its own, nature, purpose, personality almost. The book details this vast hierarchy from angels associated with like healing, wisdom, to those who govern the elements like fire, water, And then, of course, you've got the demons.
Right, right. And they're the ones linked to the, let's say, the less pleasant aspects of existence.
Exactly, the darker side of things.
So it wasn't just about, yelling into the void and seeing who shows up. There was an art to it, a system. How did they even tell these spirits apart?
Okay, so that's where the Key of Solomon gets really, really interesting. It provides these like very specific descriptions of these beings, often associating them with particular symbols, elements, even, like we talked about, planetary influences. So imagine, trying to contact a spirit associated with, say, Mercury. You'd need to know everything about it, its nature, purpose, the right time and day to make contact.
That's a lot of prep work just for a spiritual meet and greet. Makes you realize how dedicated these practitioners were. But, with all this talk about summoning powerful entities, it's kind of hard not to think about the whole, well, monkey's paw scenario. Things going horribly wrong.
Oh, for sure. That's a huge part of it. And the Key of Solomon doesn't shy away from those ethical questions about what it means to actually wield this kind of power.
So it wasn't just a free-for-all like a cosmic phone book. There were rules, guidelines. What was the ethical framework they were working with?
It really emphasizes this idea of respect. Like, they repeatedly stress the importance of invoking God's name with reverence. And they make it clear that this knowledge, this power, should never be used for harm. It's not about, like, bending these spirits to your will, but more about understanding them, aligning yourself with, like, a greater cosmic order. And they believe that misusing this power, well, let's just say it wouldn't end well. There were consequences.
It's a good reminder that knowledge, especially this kind of knowledge, well, it comes with a certain responsibility. It's not just about what you can do, but what you should do.
Exactly. And it's that ethical piece that really adds another layer of complexity to how we understand this text today.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a magical how-to guide. It was grappling with these bigger questions.
Yeah.
Right and wrong, good and evil, humanity's place in this vast, often unpredictable spiritual landscape.
It really changes how you see it, not just some ancient magic trick, but connected to something so much bigger.
Right, exactly.
And it wasn't only about like these big cosmic forces either. We talked before about the genius, that idea of a personal guardian spirit. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah, the genius is this fascinating concept. So the Key of Solomon talks about this idea that each person, they have this unique connection to the divine, right, through their own personal genius. And it wasn't just like, a passive guardian angel on your shoulder kind of thing, but more like a source of wisdom, direct guidance, almost like a spiritual mentor, always there walking your path with you. It really speaks to this very personal, intimate dimension of this whole system, not just the big picture stuff.
It's wild how it blends the two, right? Like you've got planets, angels, demons, this whole cosmic picture, but then this very up-close personal connection too.
Yeah.
Makes you think about how people throughout history really have tried to figure out like where they fit in, their place in it all.
It really does. And more than that, I think it reminds us that this desire, this very human need to connect with something larger than ourselves, to tap into these unseen forces, it's fundamental to who we are. And the Key of Solomon, even with all its mystery, its questionable origins, it reflects that yearning, that searching, and I think that's why it still resonates with people today.
Absolutely. And speaking of origins, we've been digging into the book itself, all the details, but it didn't just appear out of nowhere, right?
No, not at all.
It's all part of a bigger tradition.
Absolutely. The Key of Solomon, it's like this prime example of Solomonic magic, which draws heavily on Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, all of that. And you see that influence throughout the book. The way it uses Hebrew names for God, for the angels, it's an emphasis on the power of divine names. It's all connected.
We even saw, what was it called? The Sefer Yetzirah? I hope I'm saying that right. You mentioned it earlier. How does that tie into all of this?
Ah, good memory. Yeah, Sefer Yetzirah, or sometimes it's called the Book of Formation. It's like a foundational text in Jewish mysticism. And it's interesting because just like the Key of Solomon, It explores this idea that creation itself is encoded within this divine language, a system of letters and numbers that hold the secrets of the universe.
So both texts are kind of hinting at this hidden code, this deeper layer of reality that we can access through this mystical language.
You got it. And that connection, that shared idea, it just shows you how the Key of Solomon isn't just this standalone grimoire, but it's a thread, right? Woven to this much larger tapestry of mystical thought, centuries old, spanning different cultures. It's really incredible when you start to see all the connections.
Makes you want to go down the rabbit hole, doesn't it? Unravel it all and see what other secrets we might find.
Right. And that's the beauty of these texts. Even if, we have to approach them with a critical eye, they open these doors, these fascinating paths to explore, to question our assumptions about, well, about everything, really, and to understand just how powerful symbolism, belief, how powerful those forces truly are.
So yeah, after spending this time with the Key of Solomon, it's obvious this is way more than just a book of spells. It's this incredible glimpse into a world of, well, everything. Belief, ritual, this very human desire to understand, to connect with, and honestly to influence the forces that shape our lives.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And even if, we never know for sure if it was actually King Solomon who wrote it, the Key of Solomon, it still speaks to us across the centuries, inviting us to grapple with these big questions about magic, belief, the mysteries of the universe. Who knows what we might find if we keep searching?